This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. This is episode 89. Rarely am I prepared enough where I know actually what episode number this is going to be, but this is our New Year's episode, New Year's, New You. No, this is not going to be a episode about, what are they called, boys? Where you are making, I never do them, resolutions. This is not a resolutions episode because I don't believe in resolutions. So I don't know. Do you guys do resolutions on the New Year's?
No, we don't.
My resolution is to stay away from the gym for the first 2 weeks just because that's when all the tourists arrive.
It's
like the same thing with like New Year's Eve. It's like amateur night.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
Got a bunch of people that don't know what the hell they're doing, jamming up all the machines.
People are at the gym, slamming the gym on New Year's Eve?
No, because they call New Year's Eve. I never go out New Year's Eve because it's amateur night.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's that's when everybody just goes out and gets shit-faced and like, because they haven't been drinking in 3 months, you know? They don't know what's going on. It's like that first day of college when the freshmen show up. It's just a sloppy mess.
Yeah, we don't go out either because at the end of the day, we're at a party. This was like a decade ago. And I looked at Sarah and was like, why are we here? It's like 11:15 at night. Like, why are we here? Why are we still up? We should not even be where we're at right now. And she was like, I was thinking the same thing. And I made a calendar invite from like 5 p.m. till midnight every New Year's Eve and repeated that sucker into perpetuity just to remind us not to book anything. It says Sarah Bud Jetta couch, do nothing.
And statistically, it's got to be the most dangerous night from a driving perspective too.
Oh, for sure.
I would think so, but
we were talking about earlier this week. I can't remember the last time we stepped foot out of our door on New Year's Eve. I mean, way before kids.
I mean, with the industry we're in, shouldn't we encourage everybody to go out? I mean, should we be doing the opposite here?
I mean, we should be promoting the off-premise too, right? I mean,
that's
stay home,
true.
You don't have to stay sober. Or if you do want to stay sober, you can go out and buy some great NA products, some NA beers.
I've always treated it as you don't get high on your own supply, Ross. So the best drug dealers don't get high on their own supply. They sell more than they do.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Well, today's episode, because we have been off for a couple weeks of fresh content, we've got a backlog of news and little topics that we want to get through. So we're going to rip through some things. Some of them are going to be general about 2025, looking at 2026. Some of them are going to be hyper detailed, just a little bit of both. So first big news, to me, this is a long time coming, but Anheuser-Busch closing 3 breweries. They're going to sell Newark off. That'll be completely redeveloped. I think if I read this right, it's going to be redeveloped into some kind of mixed use space. Who knows? I think they're going to level the whole thing and start back over from scratch.
Can't you see it from the airport in Newark?
It's really close. You are right.
So it's not bad real estate.
No, it's great real estate. Yeah. So it's great real estate. And then they've got a closure of Fairfield, California, and is it Miramar, New Hampshire? Is that how you say that? They're going to close those 2 locations. That's total estimated capacity in the system of about 16 million barrels. If you look at it, the Miramar location is 3 million barrels, Fairfield is 4, and Newark is 9. So smaller breweries in terms of context of the breweries that Anheuser-Busch runs for sure. So boys, any thought on this so far?
I mean, honestly, it's not super surprising with the way the industry has gone, with AB's share going down, right? And we think about it in perspective, you know, I think I was reading that the optimal brewery utilization is 85%. And they were right around like 72, 73%. And from what I read too, after shedding the 16 million barrels, that they're gonna shed out of those facilities, gets them closer to that 83% mark. So, if we put it in like in our words, in our world, as far as a distributor, and those brewery tanks are routes or stops, I mean, we're all looking at, hey, what is our labor, right? What is our cost per stop? What's our GP per stop, GP per route? And it's just coming back to kind of normalizing today's reality, I think, and it's probably a good move for them.
I mean, I think we had a news conversation earlier when we saw MC make some moves around staffing.
Mm-hmm.
And my comment was the same I'm about to make, which is this is more indication that it ain't coming back, right? That the players are making moves that tell us that they are preparing for this trend down to, one, be persistent, and two, continue. So I think as we're listeners to this pod, I think it's important to recognize that the people that have lots of money on the line, investors and capital behind it, are making moves that are in alignment with this continuing. So any hope that we have towards the new year of our negative 5% trend downward of the industry to suddenly reverse and skyrocket, certainly the players that be are not making investments that direction.
These are big facilities. They'd be very expensive to reopen or very expensive to rebuild if they ever needed to rebuild them again, or reposition the network and get them back on, or get this production back online in some way. What misses in our summary so far too is, to give Anheuser-Busch credit, is they've done a ton of investments over the last 5 or 6 years in other breweries in the network, bringing them more lines, more capacity, different ability to change lines, so make different types of products, makes different sizes of products. So they've done a lot of that. And what I look at this from the outside in is that we're trimming our smallest, least capable, least sophisticated locations, because we've scaled and leveraged our most sophisticated locations and our most complex locations and made them bigger and have made them more valuable, more important. And that has given us the slack in the production runs to be able to reimagine the system of how we do business and how we actually deliver product. And I don't know, when was the last, Russ, do you know this, when the last time they even built a brewery?
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. I mean, Anheuser-Busch had to be in charge at the time.
I would think it was in the early 90s or in the late 80s.
I mean, I can't imagine it's been since then.
I wouldn't, like, the newest brewery
somebody's listening right now and screaming out the answer.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. The Google AI overview says likely in the 70s or 80s, and that, like, wouldn't know the last time they even built a brewery.
I think the other while you're looking for that, I think the other thought I had reading that was, who the hell is going to buy these places? Like, who are they selling to? But I think I answered my own question when we started the pod today, which is the Fairfield one is in a really nice area in the Bay Area. And with the reinvestment in AI and capital and build out happening, that one makes sense that there's demand for that property. And I think the Newark one too. I don't know anything about the New Hampshire facility. But I think those two facilities, I think that, those assets are valuable to sell. Not to become breweries. I mean, it's not like Sierra Nevada is going to buy them. But they are valuable from a real estate perspective, which could be part of the decision making, which is you have an asset that you don't need and it's worth, 10 times what you paid for it. Well, probably more, like 100 times what you paid for it.
More than likely, the land will be sold off. The land is what's the valuable asset. Right. The property. So when you have specific beer distributor warehouses or some of the similar challenges, they're purpose-built, warehouses with very unique setups, just like a brewery is a purpose-built manufacturing outfit with very purpose-built manufacturing. And there's already so much excess capacity in the network, not just from the big three of Molson Coors, Anheuser-Busch, and Constellation's capacity. All of the co-packers have more capacity than what they need. all of the smaller mid-sized microbreweries have more capacity than craft breweries have more capacity, what they need as well. So from a capacity utilization standpoint, there's really nobody to go sell this to in one way, shape, or form. You've got enough capacity and slack in the system out there. And if you think about economics, right, supply and demand, having this capacity come off the market is actually better for a supply and demand ratio than not for a supply and demand ratio when you look at it through the lens of pricing as well too. So there's that component that all of the major operators are looking at. If they are going to be completely sold or redeveloped, they'll be sold off for the land, the buildings will be crushed, knocked down, and then repositioned.
Well, I mean, I think history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. I mean, you go down the 5 into Seattle, I mean, you pass the Rainier Brewery. And now I think it's probably condos and mixed use office and all that stuff. But so, I mean, it's possible that they get repurposed. I mean, Fairfield could become a data center. You know, in Newark could become condos or something. Who knows?
Yep. The last brewery that Anheuser-Busch opened as a brand new brewery was Cartersville, Georgia in 1993. So we weren't that far off. It was late 90s, or early 90s, late 80s. And then before that, it was Fort Collins in 1988. And before that, it was Baldwinsville in 1983. So these breweries are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, these are the 9 breweries that they still have open: Williamsburg, Jacksonville, Columbus, Houston, Los Angeles, and St. Louis. St. Louis obviously being the oldest, from 1852. They took them another 102 years until they built Los Angeles out in LA in 1954 for our walk down history lane. I do hope that the AI overview is correct. If not, that's on the Google, not on the book.
Well, did Coors ever expand from Golden, or was it always just Golden?
I think that their still major footprint is Golden from that brewery, and then when they did the JV, they leveraged the
Minneapolis
and the Fort Worth brewery as well too. I think it's Dallas Fort Worth is the next biggest Molson Coors production facility.
I always thought it was interesting that AB basically dispersed their production the way they did, versus MC, which consolidated into Golden.
Yeah, well, I think AB did it through the lens of we can make this up on shipping long term rather than, having longer and longer shipping lanes. Very focused on, not that Molson Coors isn't focused on quality, but there was that attitude of like hyper local quality and hyper local scale that AB took on for whatever reason compared to the way that Molson Coors did it too. So I don't think it's like Mikey, I'm with you. No big news. For the seasoned veterans in the room, probably frustrated. Like, this is sad, but it's more of a sign of the times than it is anything else. I don't think any distributor listening to this hasn't looked at this and be like, well, I've cut routes and I've cut sales routes and I've cut delivery routes, or I've managed my team a little bit differently. This is no much different than that, to your point. So other piece I found, moving on to our next topic, the wine trade war. We don't talk a lot about wine on this podcast, but it is fun to talk about this because in March, U.S. imposes tariffs on Canada. This is just our general tariff war. Canada retaliates in a series of ways. Now, it's different for those listeners out there who maybe aren't super familiar with the way that alcohol is sold in Canada. Every province, which is their states, has a chief alcohol operator or business. And like, run to the beer store. The beer store is a state-owned operation up in Canada. And in response, several of the Canadian provinces removed U.S. beer, wine, and spirits from the government-run liquor stores and shelves and stopped any new imports. Now, some of them have reused or restarted this. Some of them have not. But there's a fair amount that stopped selling this. And if you think about Ontario, like Ontario, Quebec, and Quebec, those are two of the largest alcohol providing or alcohol buying locations, if you think of them as a retailer, in the whole world. So that's how impactful that these buyers are. And this has really hurt U.S. wine production in a big way. Pre-market, Ontario wine share pre-ban was less than 15%. Q2 sales of Ontario wine are up 37%. They're trying to expand new vineyards, new plantings, $40 or $50 million in capital investment. There's grape shortages emerging everywhere. So this is just about a big demand shift. And it's kind of crazy, right? That this is all government driven, but this has really hurt California wine production in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, California accounts for 80% of the total U.S. wine already. So if you're taking and looking at Canada, estimated 35% of the U.S. wine that's exported goes to Canada. I mean, that's a huge chunk. It's a huge chunk, and you can see it when you read the Ontario wineries that are up 37%. That's probably a direct reflection coming straight from just filling the demand because they can't get it anymore and filling it locally. So that hurts.
Well, I mean, I think I'm not to politically be biased here, but let's also be honest about what the situation was before this. There was a serious import excise tax on American wines coming into Canada with the intention of boosting their domestic production, especially in the Okanagan, right? So prior to this tariff war, Canada was already engaged in anti-competitive activities against U.S.-based wine. And you can do it. I mean, I don't know how much time you guys have spent in Canada, but you walk into a restaurant, it's a $8 pour of a Canadian wine and it's a $18 pour of a U.S. wine. And that's not because of the distance and travel. That's because of the import tax and that they levy against imported wine. It's French wine too. It's not like they discriminate against U.S. They're just trying to support their local production. Because I don't want to disparage Okanagan or Canadian wines, but I think purely
not very good.
You don't see a lot of them on the shelves here in the U.S.
I was waiting for it. It is.
I was gonna be a dick to my friends. I was gonna bring a bottle of the Okanagan back and do a side by side with like a French Burgundy and be like, "This is so good. Don't you guys think so?" To see what they would do with like the Emperor has no clothes, but But I mean, we have to be honest. I mean, there was anti-competitive activity before this aspect of it. But again, it wasn't discriminatory against the U.S. I mean, they discriminate against all imported wine.
I think it's interesting, Ross, that they've had this, and that when Trump, we don't talk a ton of politics, but when Trump made a lot of these tariff moves, and people could agree with them or not agree with them, the attitude was awareness around how much our goods in America have been treated versus abroad goods, and how, to use your term, anti-competitive have some of these tariffs been, and that is it really fair for us? This is a question of fairness, and we could argue all day long if it's fair or not. It's more of a reality than anything else. And it's funny how this has changed the conversation around Canadian wine in Canada, so much so that the state-owned liquor stores and state-owned alcohol operators are changing buying behavior by just stopping available sales in some way. So it definitely has set a message.
And I think you always have to go. I mean, in life, I have to continue to tell myself, here's that the Chinese parable. We'll see. They came for my son, and his leg was broken, and what's such bad luck? And then, the military shows up, and it's like, well, you can't take his son, so such good luck. We'll see. And I think in this case, maybe it's a we'll see, right? If we end up in a situation, again, assuming the Supreme Court doesn't throw all this shit out, where eventually the settlement with Canada is that there is no import differential with U.S. wines, you could end up with double the U.S. business in Canada easily. Because again, you put an Okanagan wine up against Napa. I mean,
it's not very good.
What do we think is going to happen here?
I cannot wait to get the hate mail from the Okanagan wine.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I can't imagine any of our distributors are carrying much or selling much of it, because in the U.S. you're up against Napa. I mean, you're up against Oregon wines. I'm afraid it is what it is.
Moving on to our next topic, Brown-Forman quarterly results. So Brown-Forman 2025 first half sales reported down 4% for global sales, but RTDs are up 5% globally, and new mix is up 28%. This is a big shift. And they specifically, I'm calling this out because they specifically talked about their move away from RNDC in 14 markets. They've got new beer-focused distributors in Colombia, Keg One, and a handful of others, including Reyes. And to me, what I look at this is that they're noticing the route to market is very specific around where their portfolio is growing and moving towards versus what is happening in the liquor world for where their route to market is strong versus where the beer market is strong. And Mikey, this really comes from don't you think this really comes from how strong the beer distributors are in the convenience channel and the most of the on-premise as well too, where this package really kind of thrives?
Absolutely, yeah. And the spirit suppliers are starting to think more like brewers, right? And not in product, but in route strategy. And when we look at the convenience channel, probably rewind time 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have thought that spirits would be so strong in convenience. It just really was kind of soft, right? At least in Michigan, because our convenience and our gas stations actually sold liquor too. So you could buy a bottle of booze. So you could have a canned cocktail in a lot of them, but I mean, it's super strong now. So you have to realign, you have to change for the market conditions and realign your route strategy to be able to thrive in those type of accounts.
And to this point around, we're talking about Brown-Forman, but also as a little piggyback, I didn't share this in the planning either, but Jim Beam has paused distilling for a year at its main Claremont distillery. So what does that mean? That means that multiple sources have told about the upcoming pause where the Centuria Global Spirits, a parent company of Jim Beam, will actually not bottle, or actually, I think this is better said, Mikey, like not distill and barrel anything. They will probably bottle things, or they'll probably finish off product, but they will not create and distill any new product for all of 2026.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard that yesterday, and I don't remember the actual numbers, but the amount of barrels that they have sitting around, and you might have to do a quick Google on this because it
how many years
alarming, the amount of taxes that they're paying on those barrels that are just aging out in barrels every year. So I think they're just trying to get through some of their supply that's already in their barrels to cut some of those dollars.
I mean, it reminds me of the opposite side of, remember when, the Japanese whiskey market couldn't keep up with demand? What was that, like 4 or 5 years ago? Because the product, the lead time of production is not like beer. I mean, and then you think of the most extreme example, think about the port industry. You're talking about, 20, 30 years is the product cycle. Can you imagine what their inventory looks like? I mean, it's not like they can take a year off and like somehow it's going to have any effect on the 40 years worth of shit they have in barrels. But I think you need to think about, we always talk about beer, but I mean, the spirit side, I mean, this lead time of production is extreme. I mean, they cannot respond quickly to changes in consumer demand, which is exactly what we're seeing.
And they struggle with the demand curve increase from 2020 and now struggled with the demand decline post, with the retraction. And they've got slack. Like we think about days of inventory on the pod when we talk about days of inventory in the warehouse, but then there's days of inventory at retail, and there's days of inventory, particularly for bottles of booze, at the consumer home as well. If you buy 3 or 4 bottles worth of liquor, normal consumer behavior is going to last you quite some time. If you're a heavy user, it's not going to last that long, but less and less and less heavy users out there as drinking consumption has gotten lighter. The other piece about this too is it ties right back into the wine conversation, is that wine takes forever to spin up production. So if Canadian wines spin up all this new production and then there is a truce related to tariffs back and forth and the US market floods back in, they'll get whiplashed and they'll have problems and drama as well too with their planning of new plants and their planning of new, production runs as well too. So lots of ebb and flow between these two titles or articles for sure.
So what you're saying? So what you're saying is I shouldn't invest in Okanagan wineries. Damn it!
You said it.
Damn it!
Is that your prediction?
Yeah, 2026.
quick search. I couldn't find the exact numbers for just Jim Beam, but all of Kentucky's distilleries collectively are storing a record high of 16 to 16.1 million barrels. And all the distillers in Kentucky paid roughly 75 million property taxes on just those aging barrels alone. So that's a huge decision.
How many years of supply does that represent?
Oh, I don't know. Let me look.
A lot. I mean, those barrels are so big.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a full barrel of fluid, so that's like four half barrels a year.
I mean, I'm not knowledgeable on this, but does that mean on average the liquid that they're going to blend into what's on the shelf is going to be older on average? Does that mean the quality level is going to go higher?
Ooh, that's a good question.
5 to 6 years of bourbon supply sitting in Kentucky warehouses right now.
I mean, I know that
I did my fair share. I bought a new bottle of bourbon last night for the holidays, which I'm typically not a bourbon purchaser, but I did for the holidays coming in, so I helped out a little bit.
I mean, I know they're dead set on consistency, and you pay up for higher age versions. So again, I wonder if the standard blend is going to end up with higher or older product in it, and therefore quality goes up.
Going into the golden age of bourbon.
Maybe.
I mean, that's a fair point. It's a good question. Maybe somebody who knows more than we can write in and say, hey, this is what you knuckleheads need to know about how we're going to blend this stuff in.
Bunch of beer guys talking about bourbon.
You know you better. Also in political news, marijuana rescheduling. So marijuana rescheduling, this was an administrative act to instruct the DEA to finalize schedule of marijuana from Schedule 1, which basically is you can't do shit with this. You have to, you can't even research it. You can't bank with it. You can't do a bunch of stuff with it, to a Schedule 3 classification. This doesn't create legal pathway for federal legalization, medical framing only. At the end of the day, what they want to get into is doing more research around marijuana. That's my read on this. And opens up to some banking access and a few other things and a handful of other positive research developments that come out. What's your boys' read on this from afar? Where's the money, Ross? Follow the money for us, Mr.
Follow
Ross.
the money, man. I mean, that's the biggest issue. I mean, get the tax money out of it. Get them in the banking system.
Mm-hmm.
Get the tax money. And then the other piece is, I mean, let's just sponsor a bunch of government grant research. Shit, why not?
Well, in the government grant research, I think you got to look at this from beverage alcohol and say, this is a good thing. There's a myth, whether it's real or not, that marijuana is better for you than alcohol. And there is some research. I'm going to say there's not no research, but there is some reasonable research out there that has been done when we did Schedule 1 marijuana that it's not very good for you. And
but you're about to get some hate, man.
That has kind of been lost by the wayside, that it's not very good for you. And as we get fresh research back in, I think we can have a serious conversation, and we do belong having a serious conversation as a community of how good or bad it is for you. Just like how they're having a serious conversation about how good or bad alcohol is for you right now. Might as well get the same problems that we've got. Mikey, anything on your end, my man?
You're telling me marijuana's not good for me?
I don't think anybody really has the right data to prove that it is.
Well, the question is who's funding the research and to what end?
And that's true.
That will give you your answer. Mm-hmm. And then we got to wait for the podcasters to weigh in, because apparently the podcasters matter more than the research anyway.
And that is so true with the anti-alcohol movement as well.
I think Ross was spot on, right? I mean, follow the money. Follow the money. This whole entire country is built on greed, and there is a lot of money within the marijuana industry. So I think 2026 will be a pretty interesting year, and we'll see how this all unfolds.
The other piece about this too is that some people might be very excited about that marijuana, that this might give you a pathway through to get back hemp legal or avoid the hemp ban. There are some comments out there from Senator Tom Cotton and Rep. Andy Harris that, hey, this hasn't changed. I don't think the hemp ban is going away, or they don't think the hemp ban is going away, that the targets is the gas station THC and the loophole products, and they're frustrated with the loopholes at the congressional level and have no interest in really opening this back up. You guys hearing anything different? Having any other different opinions on when you talk to clients or when we think about this as industry members?
I mean, my surprise has been how nonchalant our customer base has been about it. Right? I mean, it's been well, we'll keep selling it, and whatever happens, happens. You know,
Yeah.
I've been a little surprised by that reaction. You know, for example, people have been very passionate about the loss of these NA brands that we've mentioned, and their departure from the house and building these brands and then walking away. But there's no emotional reaction to the amount of profitability these products have brought or potentially can bring, and that they might be going away. That has surprised me.
And nobody really talks about this, but this could be something that surprises everybody next year too. Is, we have all of this, we have all these lobbyists with actual THC, right? With the dispensaries, marijuana producers,
Big cannabis
pushing against Delta 9 because it's eating into their profits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not on the Delta 9 side, they really don't have any kind of cards in the game. So could a lot of this move be aligning for why even have Delta 9? Why not just have straight THC beverages? Because Delta 9 is here and alive today because of the farm bill, the loophole. So if we're closing that loophole and really putting the foot down on Delta 9, in the background, are we opening up some doors for just straight THC beverages?
I mean, that's probably more than likely where it's going at the end of the day, is how do you do the THC beverages instead of the hemp beverages? And because the hemp ban is going to happen, which is probably what the feds would prefer to have happen over having this giant loophole run around through it, or have people run through this giant loophole. So that probably does happen. The next question becomes, when we've looked at this as the state level, when we were running Atlas Sales, who then regulates the THC beverage products? Is it the localized? Is it the FDA nationally? Is it the TTB nationally? Is it the food and beverage folks, or the food and actually better said, the food and agricultural folks at a local state level? Or because every state has a food and ag outfit as well, or is it the liquor control in most states? And that was always the concern from Michigan's perspective and from a lot of states, is like, if we get a pissing contest over who is going to regulate these things, the ag folks or the liquor control folks, like, who do we want to have? Well, we'd obviously like to have it as a liquor control. We don't want to deal with a second agency for a whole new line of products. So how do you manage around that too?
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting year, and I don't think we're going to see most of what's happening. I mean, we are heading towards the midterms. So the players that are engaged and have vested financial interest will be actively involved in the political side. Now, who the players are, what their disparate interests are, and how much money they have, I don't think we're ever really going to get to see that. But I think we'll see the outcome of it in 26. I think there's enough money being thrown around that whoever wants to move it in a certain direction is going to try to. And I don't think and again, I hate to spoil this for everybody, but the government is there for special interests. It ain't there for you or the consumer. So.
And we're going to get to the midterms, and they're going to go back home, and they being the congressional district, so the senators and the senators and the representatives are going to go back home. They're going to start campaigning. Like, they're going to spend a ton of the year campaigning and not much of the year doing governance.
Yeah. Well, and they need a lot of money for that campaigning.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who's got lots of money?
But I'll throw a question your way, just, off of your question of who should regulate it, and if you think about the best interests of distributors and users, the consumers, right, of either Delta 9 or THC beverages altogether, who do you think would be best to regulate that?
Well, in Michigan, you've got a regulated outfit. If you are in a regulated, legalized market, you've actually got a third option too, which would be the THC folks. So in like California and Michigan and other legalized, regulated markets, you've got usually a THC czar or THC agency in some way. So the immediate response from most legislators are going to be that person should be the one that's regulating it. Now, the question comes in states like Michigan, where you've got Michigan's legalized outfit or legalized regulatory structure was done from a ballot initiative. So any changes to that is going to have to come from a supermajority of the House and the state Senate. So you have to get 75% of the House and 75% of the Senate to actually vote to change any of those regulatory structures. Same thing out in California too. If they're a ballot initiative or a referendum state, then that's how it came about. So they'd have to do the same thing to adjust the state constitution. So probably more than likely, it's going to be wind up in the THC regulators camps. That being said, the only way you shift it, and the smart operators out there are going to be writing legislation and getting their state legislators to vote on actually moving it into the beverage liquor control outfits. That's the smart move for beer distributors, but you're going to have to find a way to write legislation and avoid any kind of referendum or any kind of ballot initiative hang up if you are in one of those states that has one of those.
I just don't think that happens until the federal moves, until it becomes federally legal on the THC.
You'd think that, but states can preemptively organize themselves and set statutes before the feds finalize what they're going to do too.
Yeah, but liquor is so tied up in federal. Like if you try to bring those two together, like you need it to be legal.
So the beer stuff or liquor stuff, yes, has the federal basic permit and you've got a permitted process, but all of the regulation is kicked back to the states for alcohol in some way, shape, or form. So the regulatory structure is so unique to every single state across the US. What's going to be different around THC is, do the feds build a national regulatory structure, which I don't think they have any interest in. If they did,
I don't think they will this year. No.
And I actually don't think they will at all. That will never happen. They have been so laissez-faire with, we don't want to deal with this. The other thing to follow the money, right, Ross, is what do politicians want to raise money on? And if I can avoid a drama-riddled problem like being for THC legalization or against it, and I can just kick it to somebody lower than me in the regulatory structure. So if I can boot a hot button issue down to the state level and just not deal with it, I would choose to do that because I can't raise a ton of money on it. And if I do raise a bunch of money on it, I'm going to piss off enough people in my voter base that I might have to have issues with that. So I'll just kick it to the states. And there's some of that's going to go on in their mind in DC as well too.
I want to bring it back to that important question that Mike asked, which is, what is the best for the consumer? What's the best structure? And it is unquestionably in my mind the three-tier system.
State.
And we absolutely, and again, it brings it back to why our industry should be lobbying, because it's the right thing to do for our industry and it's the right thing to do for the consumer. It is the one party that's involved where the consumer and the economic interests align, right? Because I think about the other side of it. It's like, do the economic interests of the growers and the THC market, as from the cannabis side, align with the consumer? Not necessarily. In fact, it's probably more profitable to keep it illegal than it is to make it legal and bring it into the system. You think about the Delta 9 side. What's their incentive? It's to jack up the shot on the counter to be as high as possible. Whereas if you move it through this three-tier system, there'll be at least a regulatory, framework built around it that, like Mike said, is probably more common sense, because we're all going to align together in I wouldn't say anti-competitive behavior, but it's a behavior that levels a playing field to, maximize outcomes for the distributor and the consumers. So again, it's one of those few positions, and I'm being biased, obviously, where the economics and the consumer's interests align, and the consumer doesn't lobby, which is ironic because they pay all the taxes. But, somebody's got to lobby on behalf of the consumer, and the only person that has the economic incentives that align with the consumer is the three-tier system.
Yep.
But if the regulation is still controlled by the states, are we going to have the same issue to where a lot of states will just not legalize it, and we'll be in the same position as we are right now at Delta 9?
Could be. Alcohol was like that for the longest time. 3-2 beer was the thing for the longest time because there were states that didn't want to have full strength alcohol. You've still got states that have dry counties. They're few and far between, but they still exist. And the attitude has always been how somebody feels about a beverage alcohol in Florida versus New York versus Utah and Oklahoma and California is different. And we should let those local communities choose how they want to regulate a product like this. I don't have any opinion different on THC or on hemp. This should be something that kick back to the states for local municipalities or local government to actually manage. I wouldn't kick it all the way down to the county level like what they did with beverage alcohol. I think that was a little chaotic, and some states didn't do it like that. It should be somewhat statewide. That's where my set on it is that we kick it back to the states figure it out. Feds belong taking the regulatory structure to scalp, create their taxes, take their excise tax, just like what they do with alcohol, move it to the states, and then let the states figure out how they want to manage it from there.
Utah's green lighting it right away. I know it. They're the first
100%.
to move. They're green light.
100%. They are what's fascinating about Utah, though, is that they have the youngest average median age in the whole country.
Yeah, but you still you can't have a bite of dinner. You can't go out to dinner with your kids and have a beer.
You can do
in
that.
most cases.
You can.
In Utah?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, not if. So, I mean, basically, at Applebee's, you walk into Applebee's, you have to order a full meal to have.
Yeah, you have to serve food
an
with
alcoholic beverage served to you. You can't go in and have an appetizer and a beer, and you can't take your kids to a place like B-Dubs because they serve too much alcohol. They make way too much money on alcohol, so you'll never be able to go to a place like that and have.
But to be fair, I mean, that's the same regulation. It's the same regulation here in Oregon. If you're not serving food, you can't bring the kids in.
Yeah, but their threshold was so high to where, I mean, it was like family dining, right? To where you were able to bring your kids in. Every sports bar when I was there, you had to be 21 and older, and I'd eat at the door.
How long ago was that?
This year.
Was it this year?
Yeah.
It blew my mind. I have no experience drinking out there.
Yeah, it blew my mind because I went to a place that was, I mean, it was kind of like a BW3s, right? And there was a line to get in because they were checking everybody's IDs. And I was kind of shocked by that. So I went next door because, hall party of one. I don't like to sit at a table. I like to sit at the bar if I'm by myself traveling. So I went to another place and it was the same thing, right? I mean, it was like anything you would go to around here to have a good meal and a beer. And I was 21 and over. So I started doing some research.
I gotta love it. That is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I mean, again, I'm telling you, it's the same law in Oregon, and this is not a conservative state. I mean, if you're a bar tavern, you can't have kids in there.
What's the threshold on food? So just if they serve food, period, or do they have to?
I mean, even if you serve food and you're a bar tavern, you still can't have kids.
Really?
Yeah.
What
I mean, again, I'm no expert on the licensing here, but yeah, I mean, they're pretty strict about it here. Which I mean, I don't feel bad about it. You walk into some of these places, dirty with a ping pong, with the foosball tables and the pool
See, you guys are crazy.
And the lotto machines.
Yeah, I wouldn't take my kids to the Icebreaker Lounge for dinner, right? There's like no windows and crazy in there, like it's an actual bar. But I think of like the majority of good food, at least where I'm at, right, comes from a brewery or a restaurant that also serves a lot of beer, right? It could be classified as a bar tavern, but they have good food.
I mean, those are one side of the argument. The other side is that in Ohio, certain types of strip clubs, you can BYOB. So
yeah, that's wild. We're going down all kinds of rabbit holes today.
And as long as it's,
think we tackle that.
They don't let you bring bottles, only cans though.
Because they don't want the strip or the dancers. I'm sorry, they don't want the dancers to step on the broken glass and cut their foot.
Yep, exactly. Moving on from that subject.
I don't know where you go from there, man.
Yeah. I don't think that
wrap it up.
Speaking of the turnaround or turnover, so CEO turnover, 6 of 11 of the biggest U.S. beer company CEOs turned over or changed hands in 2025. You've got Molson Coors, Mark Anthony, Boston Beer, Diageo, Pabst, and FIFCO all have had turnover. To me, this is just a sign of the times. Growth is challenged. People shift gears, looking for new leadership, looking for new ways to do things. Those, sign of the times, right, boys? This is nothing new, but I think it's crazy that basically 50% of the network of senior leaders at the supplier side have turned over and changed hands. Some would argue, like, okay, Boston Beer, Jim Cook returns. It's not like he really ever went away, but he has a new CEO back at the helm again.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't want to hear your success story. Show us execution, right? And in this market, we know that a lot of trends are really soft. So is that just passive blame, or is it poor leadership?
I mean, if you're the board, what the hell else can you do? I mean, you look like you're taking action, right? You fire the CEO,
Yeah.
man. You did something. I mean, is it going to change the trends? No. And I think the other side of it too is if your comp package as a CEO is based on growth, then, and you're a really great CEO, maybe you move industries. Because there's no growth.
I did read that book, Ross, Only the Paranoid Survive, on vacation last week. Great read, by the way. Thank you for the recommendation. In this story, what I found really interesting is in that middle part of the book, the CEO, so the guy who wrote it is the CEO of Intel at the time, and he wrote about before he became CEO where a Japanese company had started taking over Intel's memory business. And he asked the current CEO, and he was one of the chief executives too, was, if the board fired us and hired somebody else, what would the new people do? And the CEO said they'd get us out of memory. And he said, why don't we just do that then before we get fired? And I don't know how many of the senior leaders have asked themselves that type of questions. And if you're a distributor listening, those are the things that you should be asking yourself. As we're going to lead into this episode to probably a Wes Verno episode where he asked and talked to us about how things need to be changed up, how things need to be planned differently, and how everything around us has changed as beer distributors, but we haven't changed that much. And it's a fascinating study, right, Ross? If we removed ourselves as CEOs of these beer distributors and hired professional management, what would they do to make our businesses run more efficiently? And why wouldn't we do that?
And you got to be a little careful with that too, because, there's a high time preference associated with publicly traded companies.
There is.
Right. Take action now. Don't think about the future. Right. And, think about Intel now. Did they take the right action in that move? In hindsight, they probably didn't. You think about somebody like Tesla's vertically integrating, they're building their own chips to go into the cars. They're going all the way to the raw material production. And I would argue that they are literally murdering everybody in terms of efficiency right now. And that's because they take a much longer focused approach. And we need to be careful with short-sighted decisions, because we can bring it back to the beginning of this conversation and say, was selling off those breweries was a smart decision? What if they need the capacity later? Is it a short-sighted decision? I don't think it is in that case. I think that's actually a smart move, but we'll see.
We will see. It's a good counterback. I did want to end the pod today on a little bit of a sad note for any of the listeners out there. A friend of the pod, Mark Kernan from Calumet Breweries, he's been on the pod before. He's an amazing human being. Passed away recently while we were away over the holidays. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the family and to the Calumet Brewery team, because Mark's an amazing man. I've had a ton of fun working with him. He will be deeply missed as somebody who is a seasoned veteran, man from a bygone era ago. When I first met with Mark, he took me out to lunch before he joined as a VXP client, and we had lots of interesting conversations. But he's got a special place in my heart because he was one of the first people that took a shot on me when I started working professionally one-on-one and full-time with VXP. So very, very fun project to work on. It was before you even joined too, Mike. I think it was the last implementation we did in person. I did in person without you as a teammate as well too. So thoughts and prayers and love to Mark in the world and to the Calumet Brewery family. We love you, my man. Hope you're in a better place. And I just want to kind of close out the pod with that brief little note for the listeners out there too. If you like what we're doing, love what we're doing, continue to like, listen, and subscribe. Hit us up with any questions or hate mail or, hey, you guys are crazy at info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. We'll be back. We got lots of good stuff. We have Wes Verno on the pod. That'll get published next week. And then we're also going to do a predictions episode as well, too. So that will be coming out very shortly as well.
I can't wait to find out if we have anybody listening that's from the Okanagan. We're about to find out.
That would be too proud to get that hate mail.
I would be thrilled to see that email. Look at that reach all the way to the Okanagan.
I don't think our listener base is big enough for that.
We're about to find out.
We are about to find out.
You mentioned it. Maybe it'll make it into their newsfeed.
I love it.
Ironically, that's what we go viral for.
Yeah. Well, you guys rock. For those listeners out there, have a very safe and happy new year, and we will chat with you all soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.